Never Tickle a Sleeping Dragon by QuillQ. Summary. There were whispers of a dragon that's not controlled by either the Targaryens or Valarians, so an exiled prince flies off to investigate. Dreams didn't make them kings, dragons did, and if the rumors prove true, these upstarts posed a threat to his family. Or, what's Daemon Targaryen to do when a little brat with a stick takes his Valyrian steel sword hostage? Their blue baby dragon won't stop hissing at Caraxes, and a Lackwit giant has the gall to suggest alterations to the Targaryen dragon-rearing methods. Chapter 1. The Girl and the Giant. A groundskeeper, a defense teacher, and a phantom Dark Lord walked into a bar. The Hog's Head Inn, to be precise. That's how the story started, like the opening to a joke, and not a particularly witty one either. It was a lively evening with drinks and gambling, which ended in disaster, though the punchline was that none present within the dingy pub ever realized. Not a single person understood that the course of history changed path that eve, and not for the better. When crucial information was shared with the wrong ears, and a dragon egg awarded to the wrong hands. Tipsy and flushed with his success, Rubius Hagrid stumbled home with a dragon egg in his pocket, while the defense teacher and his master began plotting the next step of their dark plans. The very next day, 3 students, Harry L. Potter, Hermione Granger, and Ronald Weasley, found the groundskeeper snooping around the library, well outside of his natural habitat, picked out an unusual selection of reading material concerning dragons. Alarm bells ringing, this promised no good for any of them, because Hagrid's always wanted a dragon. He told me so the first time I ever met him, said Harriel. But it's against our laws, said Hermione. Dragon breeding was outlawed by the Warlocks Convention of 1709. Yeah, it's hard to stop Muggles noticing us if we're keeping dragons in the backyards, Ron said. Anyway, you can't tame dragons, it's dangerous. Bright-eyed and too curious for their own good, the 3 Gryffindors set out to investigate this latest oddity in a long series of abnormal happenings. Though a single visit to the groundskeeper's home clarified the troubling situation at once. Where did you get it, Hagrid? Ron asked, crouching over the fire to get a closer look at the dragon egg. It must have cost you a fortune. Won it, Hagrid admitted. Last night, I was down in the village having a few drinks and got into a game of cards with a stranger. Think I was quite glad to get rid of it, to be honest. But what are you going to do when it hatches? Said Hermione. Well, I've been doing some reading, said Hagrid, pulling a large book from under his pillow. Got this out of the library. Dragon breeding for pleasure and profit. It's a bit out of date, of course, but it's all in here. See here. How to recognize different eggs. I think what I got here is an Hungarian horntail. A bit hard to tell, of course, since it might be a crossbreed, but close enough. Humming merrily, Hagrid stroked the fire, looking very pleased with himself. But Hermione didn't. Hagrid, you live in a wooden house. The following events would remain an unexplained mystery, or a horrible tragedy. At any rate, it would be heavily debated, and whichever version of events were deemed accurate depended on who were conversing. In the end, there were only a few things the inhabitants of Hogwarts figured out for certain. On a Thursday afternoon, Harry L. Potter had gone alone to visit Hagrid after supper, never to be seen again. Half an hour before curfew, there was a sharp screeching sound heard by everyone within the castle. In the library, Hermione Granger startled so badly she accidentally tipped her inkwell over her finished her biology assignment. Ron's gobstone game against Seamus was abandoned when the boy rushed over to the window. It was so loud even the barman at the Hog's Head Inn heard it. Squinting through a window from Gryffindor Tower, Ron's eyes found Hagrid's hut through the darkness. Before he could make sense of what he was seeing or even utter a startled surprise, there was a bright light and Hagrid's hut was ripped away. In confused panic, half the castle ended up pouring out onto the lawn. Teachers, students, ghosts, even a few house elves were spotted on the scene, staring aghast at the fresh incident hollowed into the ground. Because all that had been left was a deep pit where Hagrid's hut used to stand. The entire house, foundations and even the earth underneath the humble home scooped away. Only half the pumpkin patch left behind. One could ask what was behind the disaster, and many would. The topic would be brought up in heated debates between ministry officials in the heart of the ministry, as well as during innocent chats between house elves preparing breakfast. What happened? Hard to say since the evidence disappeared into thin air. Was it accidental or intentional? Maybe a bit of both, most wouldn't put it past Hagrid, except for those who actually knew him. How did he do it? Was it a curse? Most likely. Who was the true target, the girl or the groundskeeper? One side will say they were after the girl who lived. She had so many enemies, just biding their time and waiting for the opportune moment. But then again others will argue and say, nonsense, it was Rubeus Hagrid they wanted rid of. Don't you know he was a half-giant? It was his house that was targeted. Yet none are able to bring forth a satisfying conclusion because who was even behind it? Who's at fault? It's something that would be heavily debated for decades to come, because this tragedy should not have happened. No, if things had gone as expected, the egg would have hatched a few days later on Hagrid's kitchen table. It'd create a ruckus even Hagrid couldn't control, and eventually he'd be convinced to send the dragon egg to a sanctuary. That's how it should have gone down. But this is not that story. Late in the year, during what was later called the Night of the Falling Lights, so named for the spectacular meteor shower that flashed across the sky, something peculiar happened in northern Essos. Something magical. While admiring the shower of shooting stars during the Hour of the Ghost, the people living within a humble fishing town were brought to awe by a fierce lightning strike hitting the nearby woods. The light had been so vivid that for a split second, night had turned to day. Lightning? But how could it have been lightning? There's not a cloud in the sky! A fisherman and father of three said bewildered. It was a star, father, his son cried. A fallen star! So the next day, rested and with better light, a group of men gathered their hunting hounds and weapons to go investigate. Despite the many suggestions about what they might find, all their guesses proved inaccurate. Instead, what they found was a massive chunk of charred earth that had inexplicably landed in the middle of the forest, topping several trees to make space, and right on top of the newly formed hill of soil was a sagging wooden hut. The most astonishing detail was the smoke wafting out of the pipe, which could only mean someone lived there. The barking of the dogs and talk amongst the men stirred the residents inside. From within they heard heavy footsteps, the door opened, and they were all rendered speechless when a giant of a man appeared on the broken steps. His face was almost completely hidden by a long shaggy mane of hair and a wild tangled beard. Being the tallest man any of them had ever seen, wary precaution kept all eyes strained on him, so much so that half the crowd were startled when a young female voice spoke up. It was only the most astute who'd noticed that the little girl had actually been standing next to him the entire time. Hagrid? What's going on? Is this more wizarding stuff I just don't know of yet? She asked the groundskeeper, though his stricken expression didn't seem promising. After the hell of the night before and waking up feeling like she'd flown her Nimbus 2000 head first into the Hogwarts Express, Ariel hoped this could somehow be resolved peacefully. Forcing her mouth to smile, Ariel waved awkwardly to the crowd. Hi! I think we might have been a little bit displaced. Could anyone please tell us where we are? Ariel paused, rubbing her aching elbows while casting a dubious look around. Are we even still in Scotland?